Welcome back to Seahawks Across the Pond. I'm Connor.
And I'm Lewis, and this is episode 5. Today we're going to be covering some news in the NFL, and then a bit more of like a personal one. We're going to be talking about, in our opinion, the best Seahawks in the organization's history. So really looking forward to this one. Let's go right into it. What we got, Connor?
Cool. So we've been building up to this one. If any of you missed episode 4, by the way, we broke down the huge NFL news regarding Myles Garrett and other trades in the NFL, like AJ Brown, as well as the Seahawks 2026 schedule. So let's get into fresh news first.
Nice. So what do we have here? So one of the first things is Jadarian Price as well. So coming out of OTAs, I saw that he was taking a lot of the number 1 reps in front of Emmanuel Wilson and George Halani. Although apparently Halani looked quite good again, as we saw him towards the end of last season as well. But Halani looked quite good. But yeah, Price took the majority of the reps at number 1. But Halani really did step up and took some of the top spots in a few of those. So means we got some good room within the running back room. We got some good ideas and some good depth there. We'll talk about some injuries coming up as well. So Zach Charbonnet and Kenny McIntosh, a bit of good news and positivity around those. What did you think of the running back picture at OTAs, Connor?
So sort of, heavily agree with you in the fact that I saw a lot of trust and confidence in Schneider to give Price that sort of solidified probably number 1 role going into the season now. I think he knows where he stands. I think everybody else knows where he stands as fans, as the organisation. He is the clear number 1 going into the season. And that sort of fills the fans with confidence as well, knowing that he's there and he's not in any form of trouble, that he's sort of allowing Halani or Wilson to sort of get ahead of him. But it's also very, very encouraging to see that Halani is improving, because Jadarian Price can't do it all. So it was good to see the fact that, maybe we do have this 1-2 punch back again, totally different to Charbonnet and Walker, but we do have that ability to sort of get Jadarian out when it needs to, just so it keeps him fresh for the first set of downs. And if it does become third along or third and very short, and it's or obvious passing situations, that Halani is able to step up. And what I did read that Mike Mack said as well about Charbonnet coming back, it was very, very positive news. And even though it's very, very optimistic, I think he did sort of tease that he was sort of, ready for week 1, and everyone was like, well, whoa, what's going on? And I do think it's a very big long shot, because I think if we were struggling in the running back room, I think they might try and get him back earlier, but sort of that drafting of Price sort of allowed Charbonnet to fully heal properly. And I don't want to see him rushed back, because he was a very, very important 12th man for us last year, off the bench, sort of in a way that, the 6th man of the NBA. He was sort of done all that work for us, so I don't want to see him come back and get injured again, or not be where he needs to be. So yeah, there was quite positive news with Charbonnet, which is I thought was very, very good news. And yeah, I just don't want to see him rushed back. I want to see him nice and settled in his role.
Yeah, I think Mike mentions that they'll have a clearer view at training camp, and is optimistic that he'll be back before October, which before we was looking at kind of an October return for Charbonnet. But like you said, yeah, I don't want it to really be rushed. But looking at how they kind of use Jadarian Price and George Halani, obviously Kenny McIntosh is recovering as well, so he's should be going for kind of around training camp time, which is good. I think he tore his ACL, I think, in training camp last year.
Yeah.
So he's had a really long recovery to get back. But I see Price, like you said, kind of being that first and second down back, and then bringing Halani in. And what I kind of think about then is, yeah, we kind of got like a different K9 and Zach Charbonnet, because Kenneth Walker was like the bruiser. Like, he was still very elusive, don't get me wrong, but he was the one that was going to finish the runs and probably get an extra couple of yards. Whereas Charbonnet was a little bit quicker on his feet and a little bit of a better pass catcher as well. So I think we'll just see a lot more of that. I think we'll see Jadarian Price being the kind of bruiser, the first and second down,
Yeah.
getting 5-6 yards on a run or something like that, and then, you know, 3rd and 3, 3rd and shorts, or even, you know, 3rd and longs, bringing in Halani to be, you know, a little bit of a Swiss Army knife really back there. You don't know if you're going to run it, you don't know if you're going to pass it, kind of thing. Not to mention we did that a bunch last year with
Yeah.
Kenneth Walker as well, on like 3rd and 13s, and just ran
Yeah.
it. And got it, which is crazy. But yeah, so optimistic about the running back room. Things are going in the right direction. Hopefully have Charbonnet back, but with these things, anything can really put a setback on that. Last week we spoke about DeMarcus Lawrence as well.
Yeah.
So Mike just had some more positive things to say about him. Then both him and Leonard Williams have been practicing a bit more on the edge as well. So not only just interior, but, you know, Leonard Williams plays mostly interior, DeMarcus on the edge. But it'll be interesting to see what their plans are and sort of switching the personnel up on the line. I think that's an interesting part, the thing to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, it was all, you know, it's because he did obviously miss the first voluntary OTA, and you know, it was things like that should never be blown out of proportion, especially when it's a vet, you know, a verified vet as well. You know, someone who's done a lot in the league and you know, done a lot for us last season. So it was good. It's good to have him back. I'm glad that Mike's sort of supporting, you know, and being that support and help that sort of the doubt, any doubters had of him not turning up. He just sort of shut it down straight away and said no, he's been good. He's been practicing well with Leo, and as well I saw that Nick Gimon-Mori was also training with Leo and Lawrence on the edge. And Nick Nick said that he's happy to sort of be whatever Mike wants him to be, and he's got sort of two very, very elite players to learn off in Lawrence and Williams. So hopefully, you know, it could be Lawrence's last season, but if it is, you know, he could be a very good mentor to someone like Nick, just to show him the sort of tricks and tips of the trade of an edge rusher. So yeah, I mean, I don't see much in it as in terms of any worries or doubts, but yeah, he's back, he's good to go. And just a couple of, you know, injury sort of news for us as well with Torrey Horton and Barner. Obviously Barner had his 2 surgeries after the Super Bowl. Was it sort of, I think, was it knee related maybe?
Yeah.
They didn't sort of specify exactly, but it was knee related. And you don't want to take chances there. And I think this year he's got a serious chance because it's his 3rd year now, and you know, his rookie year he wasn't involved a heavy ton. Last year he was involved a lot in the run game and obvious passing situations, as well as, you know, his targets were good. So I think he's going to have a really, really good year this year. And I'm glad he sort of got that figured out straight away, that sort of injury that he had to get it solved. I hope he has. I'm hoping his recovery is going good. You know, I think Brian Frury is going to have a good year with him, as well as Sawbird as well. You know, I think they'll have a good year with Sawbird and Elijah Arroyo as well. I think Barner's in for a very, very good year, and I'm pleased he's got his issue solved very, very quickly.
Yeah, no, I think it's good having Barner back. He was a force last year as well.
Yeah.
So I can't believe how many times he was kind of like open on like a corner route in the
Yeah.
in the end zone.
He's
But yeah, so
got, for a big guy, he's got some good. You know, look at that the touchdown pass against the Rams when we beat them in overtime. The sort of, you look at the behind the goalpost camera where he's sort of running at you when you got, I think it was Cam Curl at safety, and he sort of like just dropped the shoulder. Cam Curl bit, and he just went the other way. He's you know, he's a good route runner, and he's got a big body to sort of you know, because big bodied sort of players, if they stick their foot in the ground, they go in that way, or they can't change direction very well. His elusiveness isn't as good. But Barnard just sort of stuck his foot in the ground. Cam curl bit, and he just went the other way. So
Mhm.
he's got that ability, and I think slight bit of good coaching off a a tight end coach. Tight end coach in Fleury, who's now with the OC. He's if he can teach him sort of a little bit more sort of specifics about being a tight end, he's got some serious potential.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, George Kittle is one of those guys who's really good at
Yeah,
that, really fluid route runner. So I think,
very good, very good.
he's going to bring some big help over to
Yeah.
the Seahawks. One thing on Flurry as well is, I'm not sure if you noticed this, but in Mike's most recent press conference, they asked about how the offense would be changed with him at OC, and Mike kind of said, well, if you're asking how much is going to be changed, my answer would be kinda. And that
Yeah,
was pretty much his response. He was like, it's going to be our offense, but
yeah,
just for this year, which is like a classic McDonald response, isn't it? Of
yeah.
like, I'm not really going to give you anything, and it's going to be
Find
beating
out.
around the bush. But yeah, so he's just, it seems like it's going to be pretty similar with his own things. He mentioned that Brian has brought some ideas and some gaps, and he's treating it the same way kind of Clint did, where you got to focus on every single fundamental, and every play kind of stacks onto the next play, and it's an adaptation of another play, and making everything kind of look the same, so a defense has to guess what kind of play you're running. Which sounds positive. Yeah, it has his own little spins on it, but it sounds like it's going to be pretty similar. And I think that's kind of what you need to have as well. One, for the offense to get back underneath a new OC, with Sam Darnold as well, but also we know what Darnold's skill set is, which is the play action, right? So it's using their running game heavily, and then all of a sudden the safeties come down into the box and he just goes over the top with play action. So I don't
Yeah.
think there's going to be much of a change from that, because
No,
you
I
don't
don't
want the
either.
guy who's at the helm of the team to do something he's uncomfortable with.
Yeah, I'm in a full agreement there. I think the offense is good. For how good the defense was last year, the offense was seriously underrated. They scored
Mhm.
well. They were executed well. Sam had a few games where he, like the 4-pick game he had against the Rams. Sort of there was moments where he could have been better, and he's worked a lot on that in the off season. But that offense, it done incredibly well, and I hope Fleury doesn't try and change the sort of dynamic and sort of strengths that we had, because like you said, the play action worked so well last year. The amount of times Barner got open, like you said, on even anything up the field, seams, post, corners, he was always there. He didn't really have a lot of contested catches, and that's a positive sign that his route running is good and his awareness is good. So hopefully that can be sort of stapled in rather than plucked out, because I don't want to see a massive change in scheme. I don't think
Yeah.
that will work very well.
Yeah. No, I think you're bang on the money there. Let's touch on Torrey Horton. We've spoken about
Yeah,
him a little bit. So again, some more positive some positive feedback on his injury. He will likely do some things, in the next month or so. So he'll be going to training camp. Hopefully he's healthy by the first couple of days, Mike mentioned. So that would be good to get him back. His shin injury has just been probably like one of the longest
yeah,
injury recovery times I've seen. So they're taking it easy. They don't want to rush him back, but they'd like to have him back by training camp. And for me, like, I'm not even that worried. If you don't even have him back by the preseason, I'm not that concerned.
yeah,
I think if he needs all the way up until the season starts, then fine. Maybe if he could come in for one of the preseason games to knock some rust off, that would be good. But I don't think he necessarily needs to.
no,
Obviously, he wants to practice and he wants to rep in the new offense, but I don't think there's necessarily going to be a problem with keeping him out if he needs that extended time. What do you think?
yeah. I sort of agree with that. The fact that last year he sort of got off to a really good start last year. That we played the Saints early on, we played the Steelers early on, and he had two really really good games there. So in a way, yes, it was his rookie season, but in a way, he sort of blended in straight away that he didn't need that rookie status going into this season. He's been listed now as a second year player, even with the fact that he's only played like was it 4 games, 5 games he played.
Yeah, Wow.
of the regular season. So even having played 4 or 5 games, in a lot of sports, if you don't play the relevant games, or in motorsport, if you don't race the following race, you're still deemed a rookie. But for me, he's not. He solidified himself as a solid player, and he deserves the rest and healing time that he needs now. And like you said, get the rust off. Maybe preseason game week 3, just get the rust off, catch a few balls in kit, and go from there. And I think it'll be a positive season for him as well. I think he'd be involved in the receiver game a lot, because he sort of got a slight bit of competition as well now. Now the fact that Shaheed was there, you know, between JSN, Coop, Shaheed, Horton, them four will apart from JSN, them four will probably rotate quite a bit. Them three, sorry, will rotate quite a bit, and it'll be good to see, because they all got different good aspects of their game. So it'll be a good thing to see.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hoping he has that like second year step and
Yeah,
does some really great work. But like I said, we're already stacked, so the rotation will be key on keeping the offense on the field and their
massively.
defense on the field, and keeping them tired. So that would be massive. One thing I wanted to talk about, and it's something about Mike that I really love. So every single player of the 90-man roster was in attendance at some point during the voluntary OTAs. And this was rewarded by Mike by canceling the last 2 sessions early, and moving straight into mini camp. It also, the players got together and um, went to like Seattle's children's hospitals and went to do some sort of charity events around Seattle as well, which was
Yeah,
really nice. And not only for them to have the camps cut short, but also then go and reward Seattle with it as well. But it's just like not that small of a detail really when you think about it. Like, you think of MOB, you think of the type of culture that Mike's been trying to set. I don't really know how many teams have a full 90 attendance, or even the veterans minus DeMarcus Lawrence because of his injury. But how many veterans do you have coming to voluntary mini
yeah,
camps, um, or voluntary OTAs? So really nice to see like that culture being set up again this year, and it's not that kind of like ego that's taking over again.
yeah. I think I did see another team did that as well, because I think it might have been the Niners, maybe, because they had
Hmm.
a earlier camp. Um, but Kyle Shanahan sort of gives me the idea that if you die for him, he'll die for you at the same time. Sort of like Mike,
Yeah,
what sort of the idea and characteristics and personality that Mike has. So it just proves that if you want to create a championship team, you can create a championship team. And Mike's created a championship team, and he's continuing to develop this championship team.
yeah.
So it's a good sign, like you said, that even the vets turned up and decided to play ball. That was quite, it's very, very good to see, and they've got their reward now. So have their enjoyment, and then get
Mhm.
ready for the proper training camp where we'll see a lot of in Hard Knocks.
Yes. Yeah.
With
Looking
them,
forward to Hard Knocks. It's going to
yeah,
be a lot of fun. Always look forward to it. I wanted to say as well, like, well, first, Mike and Carl Shanahan both are like players, coaches, aren't they? So like
yeah,
they've got the knowledge, they've got the playbook, but it's about the players around them. So it doesn't surprise me that Carl Shanahan also had a bunch of players at their voluntary camps as well. Um, I did see that there was asked about Josh Jones. Mike was asked about Josh Jones, the backup tackle,
left tackle, isn't he?
and
Yeah,
yeah, he kind of had this like weird response of just like he is not here, not ready to, or like he's not ready to go. But it wasn't injury related. I just think he's not in shape. So I think he's spent a lot of the camp conditioning, along a lot of the OTAs conditioning, but you could kind of see it, from Mike, that he's kind of like, you're either ready to go or you're not ready to
yeah,
go, and that's going to affect your position on the team. So he didn't seem too happy about that, but Jones wasn't too bad when he had to step in for Charles Cross last year. So
yeah,
um, let's hope that he can get back into shape if that truly is what it is, and
yeah,
get going by the time training camp comes around.
yeah. Because I remember the Bucks tackle from a couple of seasons ago had that sort of problem where he was quite overweight, and you could see in the Bucks training camp that he just wasn't. There was no quickness in there at all, and it was just purely strength and conditioning, primarily conditioning, and they ended up releasing him, and it's not something you like to see, especially when players are giving it their all. But Mike gives me that sort of vibe that as long as Josh Jones wants to be there and work his ass off, then I think that'll work out okay.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully he manages to get back into some shape before training camp and before it comes time to cut some guys. Let's talk about really quickly. Let's go through the banner being hung at the Virginia Mason Athletic Center, and then more importantly, last night as we're recording this, the Seahawks got given their Super Bowl rings. So I have in front of me just like a list of details, which I'm going to run through about the rings. If you haven't seen it, I do recommend going to have a look at it. I really like it. So it's made by Jason and Beverly Hills. So to start, you have the centerpiece showcases a blue sapphire as well, the Seahawks logo, and the two Lombardi trophies that the Seahawks have won. You have along the sides at the top, you have the Lumenfield arches as well, which was really nice, and it has the number for the Super Bowl built into the arches, which is a really cool piece as well. Each player has their own name and number, and then underneath their number it says MOB, which I think is a really nice touch.
Yeah.
That's a cool little aspect of that. And then on the other side of the ring, you have the team side, which says 12 as one, and it's kind of got like the Seattle skyline and the date as well, so 2025, and you got that. So in terms of diamonds, there is an arrangement of round emerald cut and marquee cut white diamonds. Just looks super nice. You can also pop the sides out of it, so the Lumenfield arches you can pop out, and it says world champions as well. One thing I will always fight back on is world champions of the US. Until there's a World Cup, I don't like the term world champions, but here we are. You can take the top of the ring off and wear it as a pendant around a chain, which I really like the idea of. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many times like someone's going to lose it because they've got it as like a pendant or something like that, right? And then underneath the pendant, they've got the 50th anniversary Seahawks logo because it was our 50th season last season as well on the interior. And then underneath it, on the bottom of the ring, you have 12 feathers. That's on our uniforms, but unifies the 12th man and says 17 wins engraved on the inside of how many regular season wins we had during that championship as well. I really like this one, and I like the blue in the back of it, of the the top of the ring, compared to our last Super Bowl ring. It was kind of just all diamond, but one thing I did like about that one was we had an emerald in the eye of the Seahawk
because the Emerald City,
yeah, and that popped out. That was really nice. But I think I do prefer this one. I prefer the blue popping off a little bit more, coming out of the ring. I prefer all the little details. And what's one of your favorite parts of the new ring?
I mean, the initial, because even the deliverance of it, sort of come down from the ceiling, and they're all sat there like, what's going on? Where's the rings? And then they just drop down on like a sort of like a plate in front of them, and they just open the box, and they're like, this is so cool. And I think from the outset, it was, you knew it was going to be special, and it's the biggest, most technological ring ever created. The pop of that, the 12 logo at the front of it to open up the Century. Well, I say CenturyLink, it's now Lumenfield. I'll always know it as CenturyLink. But to have the sort of Lumenfield sort of arches pop out and have the writing there, the detail and sort of technology behind that is crazy. And it's just a ring. People go, it's just a ring, but it's not just a ring. This is, people want to have that. When you get into the league, people want the ring. The ring is like so special to them, and to actually have that in their hands under such just magnificence, just like you said, the blue sort of the blue sort of shining out, the two Lombardis next to each other, the engraving of the the Super Bowl, the Super Bowl 60 in it, and the 50-year anniversary in it, and the fact you could hang out on a chain, like all that brought together it just makes it unbelievable, and it was like to look at it was unbelievable, and I did actually look to see how expensive they were, um,
So did I
and
actually.
yeah, and I found that a non-diamond one was about $1,500,
Yeah.
and the diamond one was $15,700, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. I mean, the Seahawks have won a Super Bowl twice in my lifetime. You don't know if it's the last or not,
Yeah.
and that's just not sort of confidence getting me down. That's just reality. You just don't know when your last ring is going to be. And
Mm.
it was funny enough because one of my friends asked me yesterday, like, how many more World Cups do you think you'd be able to watch in your life from now?
Mm.
And when it was like, you think of it, because I'm 28 to the end of the year, so I've got maybe like what 12 to 14 World Cups ever to watch in my life from now. I've watched all the ones previously, but like you think, whoa, when you think of it, like that's actually like quite alarming that you may only watch like 10 World Cups from now. You don't know. So to see the sort of Seahawks win the Super Bowl and have the ring and how it was delivered and how it looked and the specs behind it and the sort of detail was fantastic as well. And did you see that Tariq Woolen was also there?
Was
Yeah, he
he? I
was
actually didn't
invited.
see that.
Yeah, he was. I did see that he was invited, but he sort of mingled with everyone as if he was still there. And I sort of like that about it
Yeah.
because I don't think K9 turned up. I think he was invited but didn't turn up, or I think if he did turn up, I haven't seen that he has. But yeah, I sort of saw Woolen was there, and he sort of shown off that his because obviously they had to be seated in certain places for the things to come down, and he was sat there with his little it's like a glass or transparent sort of thing with the Seahawks logo and Tariq Woolen on it, and he was sort of showing it off with everyone else like he was part of the team. I thought that was quite nice that you
Yeah.
know you you can still be in that environment. Um, but yeah, overall it was I think it was a very very you know unbelievable ring. I think not just the ring itself, the championship and the run and how we won the ring. Sort of that story will always I'll take that to my grave, and that's something my grandchildren will hear of. So, I'm quite, as a Seahawks fan, very proud of the whole moment that was.
Yeah. I mean, winning in the NFL is hard. And to get 17 regular season wins, um, or well, I guess that would be including the pro season, right? That'd be 17.
Yeah, it's 17 now
Yeah.
because it used to be 18, didn't it? Sorry, 16 with four preseasons, but now it's 17 with
3.
three preseasons and
Yeah.
obviously the bye. So yeah, it's 17 games, 18 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, and I also looked at that how expensive they were, seeing that you could buy like replica ones and stuff like that from the makers. That's crazy, but I do like it. I like the MOB. I
Yeah,
like you know going back and being like, this is having that reminder of like you stay focused on the mission, and then you could have another one of these. But winning's hard, and
yeah,
it's people. I think a lot of people see someone like the Chiefs who go like back to back, and that they go to the Super Bowl. Well, they were going to the Super Bowl quite often. Like that's not really that easy to do. You look at all of the stuff the Rams are doing to try and get back to a Super Bowl.
yeah,
They're a contender, but they're essentially saying like, sod the future. I'm gonna spend
get
what I can spend now, and I'm gonna
yeah,
go for these Super Bowls because they know how important it is. You're not gonna be able to build like that's why dynasties are so hard to build. Um, but yeah, I really like the ring. It was nice to see there. I don't know if Clint was there. I didn't see anything with Clint there.
No, I didn't see
He
anything with
kind of
Clint.
strikes me of like a mail it to me kind of guy.
Yeah,
Um, so and he'll be focused on his new team. So, but it would have been nice to have everybody back. But yeah, these guys are different parts of the country and
yeah,
trying to make a fresh start. So I understand that. Um, let's move on to the next segment, which is going to be a big part of this podcast as well, which is what about kind of our love for the Seahawks and where that comes from and who we think the best players in Seahawks history are? But it's not going to be just as simple as kind of, oh, who's your favorite player? Here's my favorite player. We're going to have a fun little bit of a game around it. So first up is the Mount Rushmore of the Seattle Seahawks. So do you have four already, or shall I go ahead?
um, I've got my four, but I've also got about 15.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the slight problem here. But yeah, maybe we can go back and forth. Maybe we could start at your first Mount Rushmore player, and sort of maybe I can get mine, and we can sort of see what similarities we got.
Yeah, maybe they're all the same. Who knows? Okay, so first for me is Sean Alexander. So the reason I put Sean Alexander because I feel like he was one of the guys who kind of made the Seahawks quite relevant. Um, and he was a running back as well. I got a bit of a love for running backs, but I was just I just always loved the way that he kind of like made us a bit popular in that area, in that era as well. So I wasn't there to watch any of that, but like, I've been a Seahawks fan for 15 or so years. So you hear a lot about him and what he did for the team. So that's mine. That's my first one. What about yours?
Um, Stereotypical or not, I don't care. Russell Wilson for me, he's got to go in there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, you know, when we were down, for a couple of seasons, he still excelled. He still done his best, and I think some of his rushing records are gone now because you've got freaks like Lamar and Jalen Hurts flying about now. Um, but just his moon ball was like so unique. His sort of like
Yeah.
work ethic was so unique. His rookie season was fantastic. He got us a ring. I know we were sort of helped a lot by the LOB, but I think what he done in the era with Pete Carroll, and Lynch and Earl and Sherman and Cam, Bobby Wagner, Averill, they all sort of just come together, and I think a lot of them winning seasons were spurred on quite heavily by Russell, and I think he'll always be a Seahawks legend. He'll always be he's a Walter Payton Man of the Year as well. He'll always be that sort of guy, and for me, what he's done in Seahawks franchise history, he's for me, he's got to go in there.
Interesting. That is an interesting one actually, because I don't have Russell Wilson on my
Yeah,
Mount Rushmore, and like the reason why I'd say that is I feel like he kind of became more of a brand than a player, especially towards like the later years. And I've spoken about the book before, and when I see you in person, Connor, I'll make sure to give it to you to give it a read. But Michael Sean Dugar, one of the reporters who that covers the Seahawks, wrote a book called The Franchise about the Pete Carroll era. And
yeah,
there's a lot of talk in that of the interception on the goal line in the second Super Bowl, and kind of about how, you know, was it Darrell Bevel that called that? Was it Russell Wilson? The play was designed to have a man coverage play on the right side, or his own
yeah,
coverage play on the right side, even and a man coverage play on the left side, um, to put Lynch into the end zone. And, Russ was kind of like, I don't want Lynch to win this MVP. Or that's some of the stories in the book anyway, from like other players, is kind of like Russ took it on his own shoulders because he wanted that Super Bowl MVP. Which threw the interception. So, but I also think a lot of his play kind of took away from others. But anyway, we won't dive into that too much. But I do think Russell Wilson, I've got a Wilson jersey right behind me. I do think Russell Wilson was a great Seahawk. And I do like the reasons you got him up there. He was magical to watch, and his deep throws were just crazy. I don't think anyone ever seen anybody since
no,
just drop it into a bucket from like 40 yards out like he does.
yeah,
So great throws on him. Um, my second Mount Rushmore pick would be Marshawn Lynch, actually. So I'm going back to back running backs here. For me, it's just like his attitude, and coming from Buffalo, where his attitude was stopping him from getting on the field. and then Pete and John bringing him over to Seattle, and then the career that he had. I don't think like you could ever talk about the Seahawks without talking about Marshawn Lynch.
Yeah.
His beast quakes, his runs, just never stopping his legs, his characters, skittles. I just think like he is just so important to the Seahawks, and he's one of those guys that you always mention.
Yeah, and that was one of my four as well. I just, a lot of things you said, sort of, his characteristics and personality sort of made him who he is, and sort of allowed him to be himself, which allowed him to play better football. I've got so many iconic moments of him, eating the Skittles, and when Sherman's asking him, he's like, "What are you doing for Thanksgiving? Christmas, sorry," and he's like, "I gotta get a Thanksgiving first. Leave me alone." And he's like, "Oh, I might go around giving turkeys in the hood," and that's the sort of guy he is, and I love that about him. But when you talk about his football sort of side of things, his wide stance made him so hard to tackle so many times as well, and the beast quick sort of 2.0 run he had against the Cardinals, where he sort of, when they had the white jerseys on, and he sort of the way he got into the end zone, sort of, that is Lynch all over. And people like that, to have footballing ability and that attitude and personality, that's so hard to balance, and I think he done it perfectly. One of my favorite ever videos from him is something when he retired, and he's going around a casino asking 49ers fans, he's like, "Who do you support?" And they're like, "49ers," and I'm not going to swear in a podcast, but he's like, "Okay then," and he just makes me laugh, and I clipped the video because there's two swears in there that he puts in, and it's just like, he don't care about no one or anything. He just wants to enjoy and have a laugh, and he had that a bit of football ability to back it up, and I think that's the importance of being someone like that, is you got to back it up, and he did. He should have been MVP that Super Bowl. Give him that ball, he runs in, we win back to back. Who knows what happens for the next season? Earl dropped off the season after that. I think everyone did. If he put that in and we win, do we go there 3 times?
Yeah.
Do we win it 3 times in a row? So I think that sort of tipped everyone off the edge. But yeah, he's got to go in there for me. He's definitely one of my 4.
Yeah. I love the clip of Marshawn Lynch and Mike Bennett riding their bikes around after the championship game around the field, just taking these bikes. Just such a great like idea to do, and just just so spontaneous. So yeah, I love Marshawn Lynch. Next one for me was Walter Jones. So I'm sticking with offense here, and I'm going with the O lineman Walter Jones. Again, in that kind of same era as like Alexander. Another guy we'll may get onto is Steve Largent, but like in that era. And one of the reasons for me was just his consistency. What was it? I don't think he gave up a sack in 3 seasons. So for me, like, it's just like that consistency, pretty much being a boulder on the O line, 10 Pro Bowls, and nobody. One of the reasons I put on a Mount Rushmore as well is like I feel like the Seahawks kind of underspoken about across the league because of where we are in the country. We're far away, and yeah, like how often does Walter Jones get talked about across the league? And he didn't give up a sack over 3 seasons. So for me, it's him. What do you think about that?
Again, one of my 4. We weren't blessed to be old enough to watch him growing up. That's one thing that I will say is, if we sort of, if you go for all time, he's got to be in there. But if we go for our era, then it's, he obviously can't be in there. But I think, like you said, the consistency and the sort of dominance that he had, when if you were to make an all-time offense, I think a lot of people would put Walter Jones in at left tackle, and I think, like I say, for an all-time perspective, he's got to be in there, I think.
Yeah. And who's your last one on Mount Rushmore?
So I can put about 10 people in this position, but I think I've put Walter there, who I didn't watch. I put Russ there, who I did watch. I put Lynch there, who I did watch. and my love, I got to put this person in purely because my love for the Seahawks and sort of exactly what I love watching defense. I love watching hard defensive players play. I love watching players who want to hurt somebody in the best possible way, or obviously legal hits and things. So Bam
You're
Bam
gonna
Cam,
say, yeah, Cam
yeah,
Chancellor,
he's got
yeah,
to be in there.
yeah,
I mean, he's got to be in there. He is one of my favorite ever players, just purely because his grit is you honest to God, if I was a player and I knew Cam Chancellor was behind me, I would brace like I'm in a plane crash.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the things that guy did, the power he produced, the his coverage. I did watch a lot of Cam growing up, and his coverage wasn't fantastic, but his job isn't to cover. He's a strong safety. He might be covering sometimes, but I just thought at his position, when he was allowed to be himself and play that position, was just unbelievable, and one of my favorite ever. I think we're sort of going to go on to this a little bit later, but my favorite ever play is from him as well.
yeah. I think it's so funny. I have a little notebook right down here with my Mount Rushmore on, and I put Cam Chancellor and I crossed him out. And the only reason I crossed him out was because I was thinking of Mount Rushmore. It's the founders. It's who made the team they where they were even before I got to watch them. But Cam Chancellor is my favorite defensive player by far. I love Cam Chancellor. And it's kind of hard for me to not put him on here, but I am going to go in a different way. Um, and I'm going to go with Steve Largent purely because he's the franchise's like original legend. He's a Hall of Famer. Before Russell and before Lynch and before the LOB, it was Steve Largent. So he had every major receiving record when he retired. Bearing in mind this was like a different league. Like,
Yeah,
would he be able to do it now? Who knows? But it was a different league back then. But every major receiving record he pretty much had. So I'm going to go for Steve Largent. Although Cam was a tough choice to not put there, and also like Cortez Kennedy,
yeah.
he won Defensive Player of the Year on a 2-14 season because he was just that much of a beast, like incredible. But I think the Hall of Famer, all the records, a Seattle legend. So yeah, I've gone with Steve Largent there.
I mean, you can't go wrong, really. But for me, I just grew up watching Cam, and he sort of like he sort of my eyes lit up when I watch him. So Mount Rushmore, if we have to base it off like statistics and performance, maybe he's not there.
Mm-hmm.
But just for me, he's always be one of my favorite players, and there's so much honourable mentions that don't make these four. That you look at Bobby Wagner and Sherman, they're two of the best players in their positions ever, not just in their eras ever, and they've got statistics to prove it. They've got clips to prove it. They've got the heart and the desire to prove it, which they did. They're both going to be the first ballot Hall of Famers, and they're not going on this list. Bobby Wagner was a hard one for me to leave out. Sherman was a hard one for me to leave out. Earl Thomas was a hard one for me to leave out. Largent was a hard one for me to leave out. I think it was not a toss of a coin, but I wanted to put a Seahawks legend in, so I went for Walter Jones instead. But Kennedy as well could have easily been in there. So it was so. That was a hard, Mount Rushmore, but I think I only went for one of the older guys, not from my generation, but I had to put Cam in there.
Yeah, no, I mean I get it. I'm with you there. Who is your most overrated player in the franchise's history?
This is a tough one because he did break the DB record for most sacks in a season, but what Jamal Adams done was poor. I think he's my most overpriced, overrated, underachieving player I think we've ever pursued, because we give up a lot for him as well. We gave up 2 first rounders for him. He was pursued for quite a while, and Pete was like, I love this guy, he needs to come in. But he came in, and Yeah, it is very impressive to have the DB sack record, but he was also lined up as a either in the slot, very very close to the line, and very very close to the D line. You know, if you also put an athletic safety in there, if you put Tyron Matthew in there, Tyron Matthew
Yeah,
will probably break the record. So you know, he did have a fantastic season in terms of statistically, but I just think for what we give up for him, you know, we went through a couple of years of pain because of that. You know, we didn't have a first
mm,
rounder for 2 years, or was it a year and or something? But we paid the price for that, and that was a bad move. And I think that was a sort of move that did tip Carroll over the edge in terms of he sort of lost something that
yeah,
the Seahawks, you know, the Seahawks needed. He lost that sort of, you know, that was one of them. So I think it's, you know, it will be obviously a bit biased because it's what I think, but that was an era where everything was very downhill anyway, and I think having Jamal in sort of done that for us, sort of the price we paid and the performance he had was not great.
injury prone as well.
Yeah,
After we got him, so yeah, Jamal Adams is definitely up there for me. He's a tough one. This is going to be quite hard. I mean, obviously, there's lots of Seahawks that maybe we didn't watch that we don't have an opinion on who's overrated or not.
and you sort of got to consider that we've watched a lot of Seahawks who have just been generally poor, but they didn't have
Yes,
the
yeah,
hype. So, for
yeah,
example, you know, we spent an expensive draft pick on like LJ Collier,
yeah,
but he did nothing. But we spent so much money on Jamal Adams and so much draft capital and money on him, and for this, you know, best safety in the league to come in because he was fantastic at the time. For him to come in, he just totally underachieved for me. So that's the difference. I
yeah,
think that we had a star come in who underachieved rather than a rookie who come in and underachieved. So overrated. It's got to be Jamal for me.
yeah. I'm going to go with Percy Harvin. And it's hard to say because like overrated, like he performed, and like you said, Jamal performed. If you're looking at the DB sack record, but again, like you said, he's so close to a line. Like you put Devin Witherspoon is sacking the quarterback from outside corner position.
Yeah,
That's just different. But Percy Harvin for me, like there was so much hype around him when he bought in. They were like, "This is the guy that's going to completely change the Seahawks offense. He's going to spread the field. He's going to unleash Russell Wilson. He's going to help special teams," and he did help special teams. But he was also massively injury plagued. He was a huge problem in the locker room. He had a fight with Golden Tate. He was just constantly a problem. And you kind of saw that because he bounced around a couple of places after we let him go. And we let him go after a Super Bowl. It cost 3 draft picks for him, and one of them was a first rounder. Not worth it. Not worth it for me,
no,
Percy Harvin. That's one I'd take
and
back.
I think he was in a team in college as well. He was with the Gators when they had that. You know, he's in the same era as sort of the Pouncey brothers and you know Cam and Cam Newton and Hernandez, etc. So he sort of had these players who the locker room there was always violent. It was always an aggressive nature. I mean, you had Urban Meyer sort of being your coach, totally different scenery in Seattle. You got Pete Carroll, totally different to Meyer. You got a situation where you're surrounded by drugs and guns constantly. You know, you were in this team that sort of, if you weren't ready to sort of kill, you'd be punished. And Meyer made that, Urban Meyer made that clear that if you didn't have any grit, out you get. And they were talking about grit, where the same sort of grit wasn't needed in Seattle. Seattle was a different grit to that sort of Gators team. So I think he sort of come into in an environment where it was a little bit more relaxed and chilled, and you still had to work hard as well, but it was more just a relaxed environment, and you got coaches like Coach Carroll and stuff that were just not on the same wavelength as Maya, and maybe that just took it away from took his performance away. Maybe he needed that sort of aggressive coaching style, which he just didn't have in Seattle, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. Who was one of your most underrated players?
I think in my era of watching, one guy who he had two games, one of them against San Francisco. I can't remember the other one. Where he was running back and he went absolutely off, and his running style was exactly like K9's. Thomas Rawls. I
Yeah,
absolutely love Thomas Rawls,
Thomas
and I
Rawls
think
is something.
he was so good to watch, and I'm so gutted that sort of he sort of reached a peak but didn't stay anywhere near the peak and just went straight down, and that was gutting to watch because that game against San Francisco, he made them look silly, and I'm so gutted that he didn't have that opportunity to like peak and stay peak for a while because he came in as a rookie as well, so we drafted this guy, and I'm just so gutted that he didn't have that opportunity to like really dwell because we went for an era where we were struggling with running backs. I mean, we had, Carson, we had Carson, and after him, but we had like CJ Procise and people like so there was a
Sean
chance for
Kenny.
him. Yeah, so there was a chance for him to sort of be great, and he just didn't get there. And then them couple of games he had, that one against San Francisco in particular, so gutted for him to sort of reach his potential because I thought he was going to be fantastic.
I love Thomas Rawls. He kind of came in, he was right by Lynch, right after Lynch. Such a similar style.
Yeah,
I really like Thomas Rawls. I got really excited about him, and you're right, a bit of a shorter career as well, and a little bit underrated. See, for me, this is a difficult one because I feel like there's so many underrated Seahawks players. And I just don't even know who to put up there. I actually might go for a running back as well. Um, I might go for Chris Carson
yeah,
because he was explosive. He was physical. You could hear the pops. Like he would not go out of the sideline,
no,
like out of bounds. Like he is running alongside of it, and you would just hear the contact constantly. He's just popping people. If he's heading out of bounds, he's taking you with him.
yeah,
Really liked him, and then it was injuries that stopped his career. I think he fractured his neck, and that kind of stopped him from playing football. So like Chris Carson, is really up there for me. But I love the Thomas Rawls pick. I love the Chris Carson pick. We kind of been picking up players who are similar to Marshawn Lynch,
yeah,
and never just quite got it right or quite um got them going, but still really underrated. My other options were kind of like Tyler Lockett, um, Doug Baldwin.
yeah.
So, hugely underrated guys. So, who to you embodies Seattle as a city the most?
This is a tough one, I think, because so many people do so many good things on and off the field that embody Seattle, but in totally different ways.
Mhm.
You've got Russell, who sort of does a lot of. That's such a hard question because you're not asking who's your best player, who's your favorite player, or whatnot. You're asking who embodies Seattle the most. I gotta go Cam. I think.
Yeah,
I just
Cam
think. I just
Chancellor.
think. I just think that guy done is talking on the field. He didn't. He was never in a. With Sherman, when he had that the tip pass that Earl Thomas picked off in the championship game against San Fran. He went up to Aaron Andrews and he's like, you put me in a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's what you're gonna get. You don't have none of that with Cam. You didn't
Yeah,
have none of that with Cam.
quiet.
He could smash someone so hard, and have a pick six, but he wouldn't go up to a camera and be like I'm the guy or anything, or like you know make himself look stupid or anything. When he had that pick against Cam Newton in Carolina in the wild no, it's a divisional game
Mhm.
when he run like 96 yards. The whole time he's going in a straight line, sort of, not doing anything, and then he gets about 10 yards out, and he's like doing his celebration and sort of, celebrating with his teammates and stuff. Whereas that's literally the perfect guy you want. You don't want any. Look at Woolen in the Rams game. He's talking smack to Sean McVay, and then next play he gets burnt. Cam Johnson's
Yep.
done none of that. He done his talking on the field, and for me, that's the sort of guy who sort of embodies a player who fans fall in love purely because of who he is.
Yeah, Cam Chance is like such a great choice for that. Obviously him and Richard Sherman opened up a bar in Seattle as well. But yeah, learning about Cam Chancellor's past again in that book, The Franchise, he doesn't kind of had that much of like a ropey kind of dark past as some of the other guys where the violence comes out on the field. He's just a nice, soft, calmly spoken guy. And then just when he puts his helmet on, he just becomes an animal. And there's not really much there apart from just becoming an animal. Yeah.
And that is exactly the difference.
For me, I'd go with Doug Baldwin. Doug Baldwin is possibly my favorite Seahawk of all time. Undrafted, out of Stanford with Richard Sherman. Both of them got talked down by whichever Harbaugh brother was the coach at Stanford at the time, went out to coach the 49ers as well. And, he is just like that guy who he was just constantly there. Like you look at Russell Wilson's magic plays, like at the end of it, the ball just goes to Doug Baldwin somewhere.
Yeah.
And he's just so underrated. He kind of reminds me of Seattle a little bit of where he's never really that spoken about. You look at the last year or so when people thought we were ranked 22nd out of 32 teams in the preseason, in terms of power rankings last year. He's out of the way. Nobody thinks he's that good. And the worst part is his stat sheet was never off the chains because, Russ would scramble so much and Russ would, go away when under pressure and, they made magic plays. But if Doug Baldwin was in an offense that kind of had a gunslinger all the time, wow, the stats he'd be able to put up is just ridiculous. His off the line was just incredible, really. So for me, it's Doug Baldwin. He does a lot of stuff for the team still. He does the voiceovers for the YouTube videos for the Seahawks as well, and he just loves the city of Seattle. So for me, I'd probably go for Doug Baldwin.
Yeah, great pick that is, and he is actually my pick for our sort of next sort of question on this is someone who you wish stayed longer. Because you can always say that Cam or Earl or Russ or Sherman could have stayed. But I think if you take Sherman, Thomas or Chancellor away from the three of them, are they the same? Whereas Doug Baldwin didn't need anyone else. He was just himself. And what he did, you've touched upon it, what he did for the team and his numbers and things were so, they were at an elite level. And I think if he stayed, he would definitely be in a Hall of Fame. He was that good, but that's one guy who I'd love to just be there for a little bit longer. I know he sort of had his injury problems and stuff, but if he didn't have those injuries, I think he would have still played for a few more seasons at least. And that's one guy you sort of you're excited because his release at the line, his sort of ability to scramble with Russ at the same time. Their connection was fantastic, and I think we could have gone on to do really good things.
Yeah, I think some of my favorite Baldwin moments are that double spin move from Russell Wilson against the Cardinals.
Yeah,
and then just throws it up and Doug's there, or the against the Vikings in that super cold outdoors stadium they were using before they got their new one, where he just goes up with one hand and just picks out the sky. That was one of our
the Vikings one.
Yeah.
Freezing cold game.
For me, I'm going similar. A guy who had crossover with Doug Baldwin, but I'm going for Tyler Lockett. Because he was there the year after we won the Super Bowl, and he was there for 10 years, all the way up until last season, where he goes to, was it Tennessee, I believe? Where he goes to Tennessee, and then we win the Super Bowl. my God, I wish Tyler Lockett was on the team just for that one extra season so that he could get the Super Bowl he
Yeah,
deserves.
because it was
Because
the first season.
that dark period of where we weren't really winning that much, but sometimes would make the playoffs. Tyler Lockett was the offense pretty much. He was the offense. So for me, his longevity, his consistency, he sort of started using the term "your best ability is your availability" because he wasn't that injured that often. He was, just being there for the team. So for me, it would probably be Tyler Lockett for the guy I wish would stayed a little longer.
We've got two more questions sort of to see sort of endeavour our Seattle love, but player you've never expected to love but ended up being a favourite.
Yeah, for me, I think that's Julian Love. I didn't know much about Julian Love. I believe he was like a backup before he came to Seattle. And just what he's done over the last couple of years, the way he speaks as well in his press conferences, he's super smart. He's super softly spoken. He knows what he's saying. He's not speaking out of turn. He doesn't get like that annoyed and emotional. But yeah, Julian Love is just one of those guys on the team that I'm just like, hell yeah, I'm so glad he's here. So never really knew much about him, but then ended up becoming one of my favorites on the defense.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many players that done that sort of done what you explained there. Love is one of them. If Thomas Rawls stayed, he'd been one of them. If Carson stayed, he'd been one of them. I mean, I fell in love with Woolen when he started, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
Purely because he sort of replicated Sherman so much that I was like, this is we could go on to something great. And I still got a soft spot for him. I know he's got his problems. He talks too much smack and whatnot. But I think under the right coaching, he'd be great. And I didn't expect to sort of fall in love with someone who's replacing one of our best corners ever. And then I'll go
I
for
like
Woolen.
Woolen. Woolen's a good choice. Woolen's a good choice. He has his problems, but he was a good guy to have on a team for a long time. So last question then. Which player on the current 2026 roster do you think will be remembered as a legend in 10 years? Someone who people like us will be talking about in 10 years' time?
Mm-hmm. Few candidates for this, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's obvious ones as well, but it's do you want to take the obvious or do you want to think like, hey, if I had to put a sneaky good bet, the odds are against me on someone in 10 years' time, who would that be? It's tough.
I think either JSN or Witherspoon.
Yeah, I mean those are
Um,
the two, aren't they?
and because I'm a lover of defense more, I think I'm gonna go Witherspoon. I think once he has his contract now, that'll settle him down a bit, and then he's gonna. I think he's got potential to be one of Seattle's best ever players. And depending on sort of what route he goes down, if he sort of wants to start being a little bit more of a lockdown corner or more of a versatile player, so he can blitz, he could potentially be one of the great in his position for a long, long, long time.
Yeah, yeah. I think Devin Witherspoon has that, and it's so exciting because you have two young guys in JSN and Devin Witherspoon, who kind of you see going to be the stars of the franchise for the next 10 years, and hopefully that's so. I do want to say JSN, but I'm gonna try and go for something that's like a little bit sneakier. It's not like too far field, but I think if we could possibly go back to the Super Bowl in the next 2-3 years with Sam Darnold, I think he would become a legend in Seattle for being the quarterback of a two-time, well, at that point would be a three-time Super Bowl winning team. So I think if we manage to get back and win a Super Bowl with Sam Darnold as the QB, I don't think, quarterback's such a star position anyway, but I think he'll go down in the history books in Seattle as a guy who delivered 2 Super Bowls to the Seahawks, who we thought like Russell Wilson was going to be.
Yeah,
But no one would ever put Russell Wilson and like Sam Darnold in the same category. So I think that's a bit of a sneaky pick for a legend in 10 years' time.
yeah, because especially with the contract he signed and the expectation from it.
Yeah.
So if he does get a back to back, then who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, it would probably be goodbye for now, Jalen Milroe. Sam
Yeah,
Darnold signed a 5-year extension. Like Patrick Mahomes, one bit of news
yeah,
we didn't touch on:
yeah.
Patrick Mahomes restructured contract, 500 million,
Crazy.
504 million. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and
Yeah,
what's it over? Is it he signed a 10-year? Was it in 2021 or 2022? So
yeah.
he's going to be there for like 14 seasons or wherever, but like over $500 million for like 14 seasons. It's not bad, is it?
No, no, that's not at all. Nothing to shake your head at. Well, that was it for episode 5.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
yeah,
Episode 5 done. So yeah, this is our 5th one now, and it's this one. I think this one's a little bit different. We sort of had the sort of personal sort of side of why we support who we the Hawks for, and I think that was a little bit. It's good for everyone to sort of have the uniqueness from it as well. A bit of why we actually care for them and support them from, over what are we like 1,000 miles probably to Seattle. It's a ridiculous amount of miles, but yeah.
yeah, it's been really cool. So, like you said, a nice insight as to why we love the team so much. So this was a cool episode to put out there. This was episode 5, so we're keeping it going. If you like it, please like, comment who your favorite Seahawk is and or was. And yeah, so the off-season program's wrapped up. They've just got all their rings, which is a nice touch. Training camp opens in late July, and then Hard Knocks is out in August, early August. So we'll be back before then. But yeah, these next couple of weeks are gonna fly by, hopefully. And yeah, so subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And yeah, please leave us a review as well.
Sweet. From across the pond, go Hawks.